we're now going to talk about a subject that is probably near and dear to all of us, Israel bonds. I kind of grew up with Israel bonds. It seems to be something that I'm going to say. I think of it as the 3 B's. From birth, you get somebody. Usually, somebody gives you an Israel bond. So we have a birth, bar mitzvah, and beyond. And we're going to introduce Ann Golub, who's located here in Boston. She's the registered representative for Israel bonds in New England. Alice is typically focusing on the ties that we have with the State of Israel as the extra motivation for investing in Israel bonds. Today she will address why Israel bonds show up in so many professionally managed portfolios. She has 3 grandchildren, and as she told me, she has one that is cooking. And she has been working for Israel bonds for 12 years. She's a New York girl who used to work in ed tech sales and is a former teacher at a preschool and a religious school. So she brings it all, as most of our presenters do. And without further ado,
thank you.
Alice.
Thank you, Steve. Well, I was fortunate enough to sit in the last seminar where Joel spoke, and he spoke about long-term care. And I have another long-term care solution, and that would be Israel bonds. Okay, now I would like to do this a little bit interactively. Raise your hand if you have ever owned an Israel bond, which is a huge percentage of groups that I speak to. Pretty much 100%. We're always looking for 100% participation. Now, you're involved with your federations, the men's club and your synagogue. How many of your federations or your synagogues invest in Israel bonds? So we have a little bit of a disconnect. We have people who own bonds, but not necessarily the organizations they represent. I would like to say that this morning I had a message first thing on my phone, and it was from I was totally blown over. It was from a locally synagogue. It doesn't happen to be one of the super wealthy synagogues in the Boston area. It is a synagogue that does have some endowment money. It's in a declining area, which I know probably some of you in this room are in synagogues where the Jewish population is not increasing, and in fact may be decreasing. And this fellow said, when you get back to the office, call me. Our endowment committee, our investment committee met last night, and they want to invest $250,000. So I was thrilled. So my takeaway to you is our long-term care policy. Currently we have bonds. Our 10-year $25,000 bond is paying 4.5%. That's a pretty good long-term care. Now, are our rates guaranteed? The answer is no. Nothing is guaranteed. Everything we do is backed by the full faith and credit of Israel. And as I like to tell clients, if something happens to Israel, we probably have a much larger issue than your bond or my bond. This is not, excuse me?
I'm going to say they've never defaulted.
They've never defaulted, not even on a $10 interest payment. That's a pretty good track record. But again, disclaimers. We've had disclaimers all morning. I, too, am a licensed registered representative. I have to put disclaimers in everything. We guarantee nothing. I can just tell you in my 12-year history, we've not had a default. And more than that, in the 62-year history of Israel bond, there has never been a single default. Okay, so what do we know about Israel bonds? Israel bonds are not rated, but we are actually a line item on the Government of Israel budget. So the Government of Israel is rated. What do you think this rating is of the State of Israel?
AAA.
Okay. Standard & Poor's A+, Moody's A1, and Fitch A. So there you go. And I can tell you, when I started 12 years ago, it wasn't that high. So the Israeli economy, as we've been hearing all morning, is booming. And part of the reason that this boom has taken place, yes, all the engineers that arrived in 1989, absolutely true. But Israel was an agrarian country. Israel was founded in 1948. And what has taken the United States 230 plus, now almost 240 years to achieve, going from a totally agrarian society into a nation of leaders and startups and technology, Israel accomplished in 65 years. Think about that. 65 years. What it took the United States, which is a pretty amazing nation, almost 250 years to do. And how did it happen? Back in 1951, some people got Prime Minister Ben-Gurion's ear. They needed money. Nobody was going to lend money to Israel. It just was not going to happen. You're going to give money to whom? For what? They used to go door to door. Boston was one of the 4 founding communities in Israel Bonds, and I have children, clients who were children of the people, and they said to me, I remember going with my mother door to door with a can, buy bonds. It was modeled on the Uncle Sam U.S. Savings Bond, buy bonds for war here, and they went with a can, and people, we have stories, people would come into the offices with shopping bags full of cash. $100,000 was nothing. They'd come in and they'd have to be escorted. We had to hire private guards to escort them to the bank to invest the money. As securities industry started to take over, we're all FINRA regulated and everything. Of course, we no longer accept cash, and everything is regulated, and everything is documented, and everything is a tax event, and that has all gone away. What hasn't gone away is that we've sold $35 billion worth of securities since 1951, which, when you think about it, from bar mitzvah bonds of $100 is an extraordinary amount of money. Now, I think what I picked up in the other meeting is that there's sort of this underlying presumption that there is wealth everywhere and everybody's worried about protecting his or her assets. And that could be true, but the reality is not everybody is wealthy. The reality is also that it doesn't matter when it comes to Israel bonds, because we have bonds that start at $36. We now have online purchasing. There are cards I left on the table in there, and I believe you got them all in your packets. I sent them to Richard in advance. You can go online for as little as $36. You can buy a bond for a bar mitzvah, a birthday, a new grandchild, a graduation, and going right up the ladder. If you're interested in your long-term care and your long-term investments, you can buy bonds for your IRAs. Your pension funds. Some of you have businesses. You have pension funds. We have pension funds, personal pension funds invested in Israel bonds. We have states. The state of Massachusetts invested in Israel bonds. The state of Ohio. Anybody venture to guess how much they just purchased in Israel bonds? Can you tell them? $42 million. $42 million. The state of Ohio said was a good investment in Israel bonds. So we do run all ends of the spectrum. Family endowments. We have small family endowments. We have larger family endowments. We learn about protecting assets. I had somebody approach me earlier, I don't think he's in the room right now, saying he's just gone through some life situations. He works with a colleague of mine in New Jersey, and to let her know that he's going to call her. They have a family endowment, and they're looking to invest significant. Now, significant to what's happening at UBS, where people make multi-million-dollar investments, is not the same significant at Israel bonds. But you know what? Every dollar counts. And the state of Israel has succeeded because of the investment capital raised through Israel bonds. There's actually a sign in Ben Gurion Airport. Thank you to the state of Israel bonds for your investment dollars. The roads that weren't there in 1951, the high-speed rail, the ports, the water desalinization, all help, all with the aid of Israel bonds. Now, we do go, all the money goes into the Treasury. I can't sit here and tell you X number of dollars were allocated to what project. But I can tell you that those $35 billion, the check gets written to the state of Israel. I do not work on commission. None of us work on commission. We're straight salaried employees. And our job is just to raise the capital. There is one other program that we have. It's a fairly new program. It's not quite the same as an investment. It's called our Israel Bond Financing Program. And I brought flyers for this as well. Basically, the way I like to describe it is it's a way to make a very large, large imprint with a small capital outlay. Just to give you an example, to buy a $100,000 bond, a straight purchase, you pay $100,000. You're lending Israel $100,000. You're getting interest at the end of the term. You get your $100,000 back. Bond financing, you're lending the money for the bank to buy a $100,000 bond, and you're paying an interest cost. So just to give you an example, a $100,000 2-year LIBOR floating bond, your estimated 2-year cost is $1,600. They require $2,500 out of pocket. So for a $2,500 outlay, of which you'll get $900 back after 2 years, you're allowing Israel to have the use of a $100,000 bond, which is an incredible program. We've had quite a bit of participation. If anybody here wants to commit to doing this, you can have an Israel Bonds coffee mug. And with that, I'm going to turn the program back to Steve. Thank you.
Is that a personal guarantee on that bank loan thing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Basically, you're on the line. Exactly.
I'm going to say one thing that she didn't say. Most people think of Israel Bonds as so used to everybody coming up and asking for a donation. Israel Bonds is not a donation. It is an investment. So keep that in mind. Having said that, it's a great, safe investment, and the Mazel Tov bonds are something that you can give at a very affordable price. One year I decided to give them out as Afikomen gifts. And so like you find the Afikomen, you got an Israel bond. That was the idea. So you can find them. By the way, many of you are approached by many charities and you make donations. You can buy a bond and give them the bond. So you can get a double deal.
It's called the Double Mitzvah Program.
So keep in mind, always keep in mind when you're going to do something, it's a safe investment, and I know everything I said about the disclaimer. It's considered a very safe investment. It's a good return. It should be part of your diversified, that type of investment is good for a diversified portfolio. And at any rate, let us continue with that. And I'm sorry I gave a little bit because I am a member of the Board of Trustees in Pittsburgh for our area for Israel Bonds.